This is the Jack Murphy Podcast. Here's your host, Jack Murphy.
Well, let's get it started. The Jack Murphy Podcast. By the way, one subscriber away from 200. You could be the one that puts us over 200, and I will highlight you here on the program. If you're new to the Jack Murphy Podcast, subscribe and like. We got a lot to cover today, folks. I mean, a lot to cover. There's a lot going on. First of all, I have a warning that I have to give you about one of my favorite foods. Probably one of your favorite foods. It's a Southern staple. In fact, one night this week, I don't know which night yet, but every year I grow a bunch of tomato plants. And I pull the tomato plants up about a week and a half ago. You know, they were starting to dry out. There were a few tomatoes left on them, but there were a bunch of big green tomatoes. But I knew the bugs would get them, and they weren't getting enough water. So you pull those off, you put them up in the window, and over time, they become really good ripe tomatoes. So there will be a night this week when I have kind of a sad night. I'll probably invite my kids over and have the last BLT of the year, or the last burger with a homegrown tomato slice on it of the year. And it's going to be a really sad night. But what I want to talk to you about today is bacon. Now, just the other day, I saw this guy, Jose Andres. I think I'm saying his name's correct, but he's a guy that owns a bunch of restaurants, very successful chef, and he does wonderful nonprofit work. He has a nonprofit. Anytime there's a flood or a natural disaster and people are starving, he will fly in with his team and he'll cook meals for all these different people and feed them. I mean, that's a great thing. You can't complain about that. But he also does interviews about food all the time. And I saw him doing an interview the other day about food. Let me turn off my phone here. He said that we're overcooking bacon. He said bacon is meant to be soft and soggy and greasy, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And I heard him say it, and I said, I got to disagree with you, Chef, 100%. 100%. I like my bacon crispy. I don't like it burnt, but I like it crispy. I enjoy the crunch of the bacon, particularly if it's going to be on a sandwich or whatnot. And now the health department's backing me up. Folks have been warned to make sure that their bacon is crispy after a fry-up fan who ate his still undercooked bacon wound up with pork worms in his brain. The 52-year-old sought medical help after his migraines wouldn't go away because they weren't migraines. They were worms from the pork, and they were eating his brain, all because he didn't cook his bacon long enough. A scan revealed multiple cyst-like lesions scattered across his brain, and further tests showed he was infected by pork tapeworms, common in pigs. The worm's larvae had invaded his brain and were embedded. Let me stop right. Don't let this ruin bacon for you. I can see a lot of you out there squirming and twisting, looking at the screen saying, Murph, you're ruining the bacon for us. No, you just cook the bacon all the way through. Make sure it's crispy and there won't be any danger. Anyway, this guy's in intensive care several weeks, getting anti-parasitic and anti-inflammatory drugs. Hopefully he's going to be okay. I mean, I hope he is. By the way, that Jose Andres guy, he also has a restaurant in Washington, D.C. I don't know if it's still open or not, but he did something pretty cool. He went back through old cookbooks from early America, 1700s, 1800s, and he picked out recipes, and he had this restaurant where that's all they served. Pretty good idea. I never went, but I heard about it. Now, I want to talk about something else because, I had a great day today. And by the way, shout out to my friend John Carter John has given me so much help with everything I do, websites, my voiceover work, the podcast, video. But this is his T-shirt. Anyway, good to be wearing that today. So I had a great day today. I got up early this morning, got in about 12,000 steps with my pups, had a nice workout, got a bunch of auditions done, did some research for the podcast, and then I saw something that disturbed me. And it was a graph of how many people in America are claiming disability or claiming that they are disabled. And it's startling, and it's the research is bad. You know, and I run into friends of mine that are my age, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to plan a podcast where I'm going to have a former coworker join me on the program. He said he could do it, and I found a picture. Somebody sent me. Well, I think it was him. Maybe he sent me a picture of the two of us 20 years ago, and we were both fat pigs. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. And so I'm going to have him on to talk about, you know, because he's in really good shape now, and I'm in much better shape now. But we did a lot of things the same way, but he does a little bit different. He's a little younger than me. But the point is, I run into people my age all the time, and I go, what is wrong? You know, how did they get in that bad a shape? And the answer is they got in that bad a shape by doing nothing for a long, long time. So never exercise, never get off the couch, never exercise their body, never get their heart rate up. They eat really bad food all the time. And what begins to happen is your body doesn't react well to that. Your blood sugar, you know what happened? Your blood sugar goes up. And I mean, you can still not do all that stuff. And I think the last time I went to a cardiologist, I had the CAT thing, and he said, well, you got about 20% blockage in your arteries, but that's normal for your age. But, you know, one time my A1C was high, my body mass index was much. The point is, you got to make some effort not to die early. That's the bottom line. And it's not necessarily about living longer. It's about the quality of your life. I mean, you can go over to the nursing home, and there's people over there my age and younger that are in wheelchairs. They got one leg. They've had a stroke. That can happen to anybody. But the point is, you got to do some work. In the month of July, we added 234,000 more disabled Americans, making it the current third year with a new high in a row. So it's getting worse every year, and the reason is pretty simple. I just read this stat the other day. In a 20-year period, we went from, I'll tell you what it was. I'm planning a show about the Netflix reality show that they've just done about The Biggest Loser. Now, I know somebody that was on The Biggest Loser. We're going to have the casting director on. The person that I knew personally that was on The Biggest Loser, I think he had a fairly good experience, but when you watch this new special that's on Netflix, you look at it, and it is really cruel, really cruel. But anyway, the point is, when they did that show, however many number of years ago it was now, I believe this was in the late 90s, the percentage of people in America that were obese was like 28%. Today, it's in the 42% range. So we're getting fatter, and we're not just fatter, we're getting obese. And so you run into a myriad of problems: heart disease, stroke, more cancer, more diabetes, more joint replacements. It just leads to a myriad of health problems, and it leads to terrible quality of life. So I would just urge you, if you're not, it's never too late to start trying to get healthier, trying to get some exercise, whether it's walking, getting on a treadmill, an elliptical. For God's sake, man, do something. Take care of your body. That's all I want to say about it. Sorry I was preaching for a minute. We got another one. This time it's not a teacher. You know, normally when we hear about sexual abuse, it's, you know, we think of some old pervy white guy that's, you know, trying to get some little kid into the van or whatever. But the truth is, sexual perversion is rampant in our country. It's demonic, and it's everywhere. And if there are children in a place, you can bet there are sexual predators nearby, whether it's a school, whether it's a church, a YMCA, I don't care where it is. Sexual perverts, they go where the action is. They go where the children are. It's just what they do. But there are some people that are just twisted, and I think this lady is one of them. A nurse, this is the second nurse we've had within the past couple of weeks. A nurse from Ocala, Florida, is accused of raping her 15-year-old stepson because he's only 15. I mean, I'm sure the 15-year-old may have went along with it. But this happened after the 15-year-old's father walked in and caught them in the act. So in other words, his father was divorced. He had married this new, younger woman that was a nurse, and he had a 15-year-old son. Let me pop a picture up here so you can see what we're dealing with. She's only 34. Her name is Alexis Von Yates, and she accepted a plea deal. Why do they allow these sexual perverts to accept a plea deal? She's pleaded to a lesser charge of lewd and lascivious battery in the case. Yeah, the father came home early, and the pair were reportedly, having sex. The suspect told the teenager she was, quote, horny. And, it went from there. Your own stepchild. I mean, couldn't you wait till your husband got home? But I'm telling you, it's all around us. There is evil all around us. Like where I go to church, we had an incident Sunday. We have a security team at our church because, there have been so many attacks on churches and priests and preachers and whatnot. We have a group, I think there's about 10 of them. We have several services at our church, and so there's a lot of law enforcement that go there. And so they have a team. I think there's about 10 of them. They got little earpieces, and they're carrying guns or whatever, but they're dressed just like regular people. And they keep an eye on the congregation and everything while the service is going on, just in case, because there's so many lunatics out there that come in and attack churches now. And so anyway, they're preparing the communion on Sunday, and this random guy, he was a big guy too, about 6'4", 6'5". He was in shape, but he's wearing like shorts and flip-flop, and he had a toboggan on his head, and he just walks up there like he's going to get the communion ready. And they have, there's already people doing that. And most of the people are, on their knees, focusing on the communion. And so the security team immediately rushes over, and I'm up near the front, and I go, be ready. You may have to go up and help take this guy down. And it's not something I was looking forward to having to do. But anyway, the deacon actually talked to him for a while, and anyway, he wouldn't leave. He wouldn't leave from up there, and so the security people stood there with him, and they served the communion, and then he went to a seat and sat down. And afterwards, I asked around a little bit, and turns out he was having some mental issues, but it could have been something much worse than that. But there's a lot going on. Keep your eyes open. Well, I know everybody is sick of hearing about Cracker Barrel. I know I am. And now on social media, suddenly I see Cracker Barrel has tried to go to social media to fix the problem. So they're showing, guys with beards and flannel shirts and their chubby wife coming out of Cracker Barrel going, we was just in there. We had the best hash browns. The eggs is great and the service. I love the new decor. And, these are all actors doing this. And I'm sure the food's okay. People will get over it, but you screwed up. And instead of just owning up to the screw up, you try to convince us that everybody loves what you're doing. But I had heard about this a few days ago, and then I read the story today. But y'all remember Hooters, right? And if you're a guy, every guy when you were younger went to Hooters or loved Hooters. And there were always some things, I'm going to be honest with you, there were always some things I didn't like about Hooters. First of all, I was never a big fan of their chicken wings. I don't like those battered chicken wings. Some of their other food was okay. But, it just depended on which Hooters you went to. Some of the Hooters, if you walked into a Hooters, the waitresses were attractive. And others, you walked in and you went, they don't need to be wearing that. And I never liked the look of those shiny pantyhose with the outfit. They look like static electricity waiting to happen. But anyway, Hooters, it's funny, years ago, I met a guy that ran a small airline in Winston-Salem. And the airline had been started and was owned by the founder of Hooters. So he knew the guy. He used to tell me all about him, said he was a great guy, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, Hooters is bankrupt. But there are some Hooters that are still open, and there are even places where they're making a comeback, and you'll never believe where. There are two open, and they're building two more Hooters around the Villages down there in Florida. The Villages, where you go when you're over probably now 55, 65. They got all the golf courses, and everybody drives golf carts, etc. But they're bringing it back, and there's a guy, and I think they can. If they would get rid of a lot of the stuff that people don't like, which is, you don't have to have women in skin-tight T-shirts and short shorts that show everything running around. You can make it a little more family-friendly. You can improve the fun. It was a fun place, but a lot of people wouldn't go because of the women. But one of the current bosses, a guy named Neil Kiefer, says he thinks he can turn things around by balancing the family-friendly thing and the tongue-in-cheek, sexy vibe. It's like, do you remember, you ever been to a place called Dick's Last Resort? They used to have one of these places down in Myrtle Beach, and I went a couple of times, and they basically abuse you, and you pay a lot of money to be abused. I mean, it wasn't cheap. The food was pretty good. I mean, they had like king crab legs and stuff, but everything came in a bucket with fries and everything. But if you ask the waiter a question, they'd go, "What do I look like? Some sort of effing genius?" I mean, they would curse and they were just rude. That was their thing at Dick's. And they had all these rude signs up, and they would bring these hats to the table and write terrible things about you and stick on them. But it was fun. And if you were on vacation, it was kind of family fun, like families would go in there, and I think there's probably room for that at Hooters. But anyway, he said they'll still wear orange shorts, but you won't see any butt cheeks hanging out. And he wants to fix up the locations because a lot of them had become run down. He said the hard part is giving people a reason to come back to Hooters. It's just like Cracker Barrel. I think I could fix Cracker Barrel. It wasn't about the decor. It wasn't about the logo. It was about the food and the service. They had, for COVID or whatever the reason was, the quality of the food, the preparation of food just wasn't as good. They used to make it and get it right out to you. And like I said before, my food wasn't very good the last few times I went there. And my waitresses or waiters weren't very friendly either, or the hostess. And it used to be that you went to Cracker Barrel, the same hostess was always there, and she was great, just great. And you always had 2 or 3 favorite waitresses. Not anymore. That's what's wrong. All right, we got a couple of stories that we got to get to. One, this woman in Florida had a little bit too much to drink over the weekend. She got drunk and put on, I don't know why. I've over imbibed before, I'll admit it, but I've never put on a hot dog suit afterwards. She did. She got really hammered and put on a hot dog suit and then toilet papered her neighbor's car. Not sure what the connection is there, but 48-year-old Marcia Morgan was angry after one of the neighbors parked too close to her yard. I'm going to just stop right there because I've lost interest in the story, but it has gotten me more interest in some of these people that we see now on social media that have just seemingly lost their freaking minds. Somebody will buy a house and will decide, you know, Ethel, I think we need to put up a fence. The old one's torn up or whatever. And they have the fence company come out and they find out where the line is or the property line or what, and they start doing the fence, and then these 2 crazed old people come out like you just ran over their grandchild. They're screaming, F you, that's that, at the top of their lungs. You're on my and they're cursing out the word. It's unreal. And I see it all the time on all the social media. Or somebody moves in and they go, yeah, we did the plot lines, and I don't know how to tell you this, but turns out your fence is 4 feet over on our property, and, can we rectify that? No, it's my property. I ain't moving shit. You son, everything's been fine. Here, leave. They just go crazy. Now, obviously, this woman did too. She got drunk, put on the hot dog suit, all because her neighbor parked probably on his property, but a little bit too close to her, and it pissed her off somehow. She's been charged with disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, and imitating a hot dog. What a wiener.
You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring.
You mean like Democrats?
All right, so we all know that Uber has had some problems. They've got a new feature at Uber. I don't know if you've heard about it, but if you're a woman, you can actually order a woman driver because they've had some. Even though they vet the drivers, they know them and they get rated and they have their rated, not rated. They get rated. They know who they are. They have their ID and all this. There have been a bunch of women sexually assaulted by Uber drivers. I guess delusional people driving these Ubers late at night, and some good-looking woman gets in their car and they're looking at the rearview mirror and goes, she's giving me the eye. I think she wants me. And she doesn't. And he makes the mistake of trying to touch her or whatever and gets arrested or whatever. But, I think now a lot of these companies, they're not doing as good a job screening some of these drivers as they should. A perfect example is this terrible accident we had, and this is not to pick on people from India, but you had a guy from India, and he didn't speak English. He failed the English part of the driving license. He could read one road sign. He was from California, by the way. And he was able to get a CDL license in California, which enabled him to drive all over the country. And he did an illegal U-turn, and several people wound up getting killed. But this biotech CEO is suing Uber after he said one of its drivers, who's an illegal alien. Now, how does an illegal alien wind up being an Uber driver? How do they get a driver's license? How does Uber approve an illegal alien being a driver? I mean, I would want to know if he's an illegal alien because I wonder how well he knows the traffic laws, or can he read the traffic signs, or, a million questions I would have. And I'm not trying to be racist or fascist. I'm just saying I'd kind of like to know if an illegal alien was driving my Uber car or not. But I'm going to play you this video of what happened. This BioPharm CEO, Brian Cobell, filed the lawsuit in Charleston after he had an altercation with his Uber driver, who's an illegal immigrant from Russia. And the guy punched him and knocked him out, all because of his service dog. Check this out.
Biotech CEO sues Uber after brutal attack by driver over service dog. A biotech executive is suing Uber after allegedly being violently attacked by one of its drivers during a dispute over his service dog. The incident, which was caught on video and has since gone viral, shows 42-year-old Russian national Yuliam Z. Vadim Nikolaevich confronting Brian Cobell, a 45-year-old biotech CEO. In the footage, Nikolaevich can be seen grabbing Cobell by the throat before headbutting and punching him, sending Cobell's dog tumbling to the ground.
I mean, this guy has got no business. He's obviously can't control his emotions or his temper. He's the last person you want behind the wheel of your Uber, number one. And then, headbutt and a punch, and then he just drives off, and cameras are running everywhere. He obviously has been charged with assault, and Uber will have to pay a huge settlement. There's going to be a lawsuit from this tech executive. But, this stuff, people have, I talk about rage all the time. People just have such rage. And by the way, I get it with a service dog. Every dog's a service dog now. And part of the blame, and I don't know what happened in the car with the dog or whatever, but he probably didn't want a dog in his car because he's from Russia. Maybe they don't like dogs as much or what. There are people from other countries, they don't like dogs. I've talked about this before. I pass people while I'm walking. I pass people from India and other countries, Muslim people, and they'll walk 100 feet to get away from me and my dog. That's fine if you don't like the dog. They don't say anything to me. It doesn't bother me at all. But part of this I blame on doctors. There are a lot of doctors out there who will write a letter if you bug them hard enough, pester them enough, to declare whatever animal you have that you want to be your service dog. I don't know if I told the story on a podcast, but I had a neighbor in California, guy that I played golf with, and his wife had a service goat. I kid you not. And it was all a scam. In the neighborhood that we lived in, you could have horses, but they had the HOA, like everybody had a big lot, and you could have a horse, and they had riding trails for the horses all through there out in Southern California. But she had a goat, and the way the HOA rules read, it had to do with the shape of the hoof, and the goat doesn't qualify. And what would happen, is they had, everybody had, tall fences. I would say they were like 5 feet. This goat was pretty big, and they had a walking trail right behind it. And so people would be, they'd be on their horse all dressed up, riding through there. And the goat would jump up and stick its head over and go, meh, and it would scare the crap out of the horses, and they'd take off running. And, of course, they complained. And so she got this detailed letter from the HOA that said, you got to get rid of the goat or, we're foreclosing or whatever it is the HOAs do. So she tricked them. She goes to her doctor, and her doctor gave her a letter declaring the goat a service animal. So they couldn't make her get rid of it. Shouldn't have done it. I got it. She loved the goat and whatever, but she broke the rules when she moved in with the goat, and the doctor shouldn't. There was nothing wrong with her. She didn't need a service goat. But anyway, this will be a big, big lawsuit for Uber, and hopefully they'll screen their drivers a little bit better.
This is a time where community needs to jump in. and make sure we elect a Democratic House so that we have a backstop to this authoritarian push. Authoritarian push.
Now, I know you're like me. We're all watching with anxious eyes to see what happens in Chicago, because it looks like the president is planning to do in Chicago what he's done in Washington, D.C., which is stop people from getting murdered, stop people from getting robbed, stop 1 million cars from being stolen every weekend. In Chicago, I think they've done the exact same thing that they did in Washington, D.C. They've played with the crime statistics just a little bit. They claim that the violent, severe crime rate for Chicago is down 30% for the first half of 2025. Does anybody believe that? I didn't think so. You know, they had one weekend in June of this year where over 30 people were murdered in one weekend. They just hate Trump. They just hate Trump. That's it. And so the mayor is urging the people of Chicago. He's trying to get them worked up like it's Black Lives Matter again. He's trying to get them George Floyd all worked up so that when the National Guard shows up, they'll start throwing Molotov cocktails and attacking them, and there'll be a big thing, and then they can blame it on Trump. I fully believe that's what he's trying to do. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Listen, thank you for being part of the Jack Murphy podcast today. If you haven't, you could be that magic 200th subscriber, and I'd really appreciate it. Just subscribe, like the video, leave comments, whatever you want to do. And thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with another Jack Murphy podcast.
Thanks for watching the Jack Murphy Podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Go ahead, ring it. Get alerts when a new episode drops, and tell your friends about the Jack Murphy Podcast. But only the cool friends, please. Tune in next time for another episode of the Jack Murphy Podcast.